essentially it's to get to Wanaka, you're coming into the mountains and into a mountain environment. You're not out on the plains. You're straight into the high and dry. It's New Zealand's only continental climate. Central Otago is, so it's protected by mountains on one side, and the further you get away from those mountains, the hotter and the colder and the drier it gets. So where we are within all of that in Wanaka is we're on the cusp of that rain shadow. So let's say for catchment yield we're somewhere between 75 and 11 metres of cubic metres of doesn't really matter, but you've got 75 metres of catchment yield. There's 75 cubic metres of water that is coming down our river from all of the draining off all of the mountains around us. Right here, just 2 kilometres this way, 1 mile this way, you're in 11 cubic metres per metre squared of catchment yield. So you're falling off the scale of precipitation, essentially, of rainfall, right where we live, and it gets further and drier the further you go that way. So we're the most temperate, I guess, of Central Otago's microclimates. We're also the most open, and we're in an open basin, essentially. Central Otago is made up of a number of different valley systems, but the Upper Clutha Basin, where Wanaka is a very open place. I think, and I believe a lot in how geology and geography informs the culture, and informs the individual, and informs people. And what I found is, a lot of hippies live there and stuff. It's very open and relaxed and chilled out. It's changed over the years. It's gone from, in terms of its land use, it's gone from a Māori sort of women's camp. Wanaka is Wanaka. It's a school or an education camp where the Māori used to come, and the women used to stay there with the children and teach crafts and survival, essentially fishing, hunting, gathering, all that sort of stuff, while the blokes went over and got the greenstone, got the hunted larger game, but also brought back jade from the west coast. Then it went through this period of wasteland, the New Zealand government's word, not mine, but it wasn't resettled, and so when the first Europeans came along, it was just open land that was carved up into huge high country farms. Our farm, when we bought it, when my great-grandfather bought it in 1912, 102 years ago, was 80,000 hectares. I don't know, what's that, like, over 150 acres, over 150,000 acres, I should say. So a big farm. That changed. They had death duties back then, so the whole thing went under the hammer to pay for death tax when he passed away. But mainly that to say is that it's that was one land use. So when I was a kid, it was a service town to high country farmers that we all were, very isolated farmers. So a sense of self-sufficiency and let's say sustainable design was a necessity of our lives. That we couldn't get diesel up into the inland or anything like that, so all of the agriculture was run off by horses. You had to grow feed for the horses. You had to grow feed for all the people that worked on there, which after all was the community of Wanaka. Wanaka Station was Wanaka, essentially. You had to have mixed crops, stock, cattle, sheep, goats, different crops, orchards, water wheels to run for electricity for the few times that you needed it. Very self-sustaining sort of model, and even though the farms got considerably smaller, that sort of legacy or culture has remained. The next phase was sort of holiday makers came in, and probably people seeking distance. So there was kind of hippies coming in and stuff like that, and then ski bums came in, and that's kind of probably me more than anything else, although that's the culture at least I grew up in. And then and now sort of people getting second homes, and now at this really exciting moment in our history, town's history, is now we're getting small businesses coming in, and we're sort of having this kind of like a third wave, and this is just our town. I'm not talking about viticulture at this stage, just talking about the growth of our town. And we've got small exciting businesses starting up in our region. It's a really high growth town, but again it's kind of relaxed. It's got this really relaxed atmosphere, whereas say for example Queenstown, right across the away, right across the other side of the mountains, which is a little bit more well known than Wanaka, a bit more like Chamonix, you know, at the bottom of a very, very deep valley, and so all culture is compressed in a certain sense, and so you've got a lot more sort of capitalistic sort of feeling. Everyone's a little bit more on edge. Sorry, Queenstown, but you know, like Wanaka is a little bit more chilled out in that sense, and I think that informs the wine as well. In a sense, you've got this idea of a much more temperate climate, a much more sort of temperate environment that the grapes grow up in, and so you've got a little less exposure and pressure in the wine. It's just a little bit détendu, you know, relaxed, for lack of a better word, and you can focus more on precision and detail and phenolics are much closer to the surface. You don't have so much climatic flesh sitting on the top of them, so much more sort of precision, detail, and linear sort of feel to the wines rather than weight or mass or volume.
We were anywhere from a tourist to a
So to get to Wanaka, you've had to fly in from Auckland into Queenstown, so that's going from one island to the other. It's essentially going